Tell him I'll be right there after I take a shot.
That's what I like to hear. Kid who isn't afraid to lose.
Hit you recently.
Mr. Tanaka is from you.
Told me I had nice legs.
And powerful heritage. Mother of God.
Forget about the girl.
The world of underground martial arts tournaments has always fascinated action movie fans, but few films captured that excitement like Bloodsport. Released in 1988 and starring Jean-Claude Van Damme, the film became one of the most iconic martial arts movies ever made and helped launch Van Damme into international stardom. The movie follows the journey of Frank Dux, a highly trained martial artist who risks everything to participate in a secret and illegal fighting tournament known as the Kumite. Hidden from the eyes of the world, the tournament gathers the most dangerous fighters from different countries, each competing for honor, glory, and survival. Before the action even begins, the audience understands that this is not an ordinary competition, but a battlefield where only the strongest can survive. The story begins with Frank Dux preparing himself for a journey that will change his life forever. Frank is not fighting for money or fame. Instead, he wants to honor the memory and teachings of his martial arts master Senzo Tanaka, who trained him from a young age and shaped him into a disciplined warrior. Years earlier, Frank had accidentally discovered the secrets of the Tanaka family martial arts training and earned the respect of his master after proving his determination and courage. Since then, he has dedicated his life to becoming a true martial artist capable of carrying on his master's legacy. As Frank gets ready to travel to Hong Kong for the Kumite, another obstacle appears in his path. Because he is an American soldier, his military superiors refuse to allow him to leave for an illegal underground tournament. They consider his actions reckless and dangerous, especially since participation in such events could damage the reputation of the military. However, Frank believes this is something he must do regardless of the consequences. He quietly leaves the military base and begins his journey, knowing that authorities will soon be searching for him. Once his disappearance is discovered, two military investigators are assigned to bring him back before he reaches the tournament. The officers are experienced and determined, believing Frank is making a terrible mistake that could ruin his future. Their mission adds another layer of tension to the story, because Frank is now racing not only toward the Kumite, but also against the people trying to stop him. Every step he takes brings him closer to both his dream and the possibility of capture. When Frank finally arrives in Hong Kong, the atmosphere immediately feels different. The city is alive with energy, crowded streets, bright lights, and people from every corner of the world. Hidden beneath this busy city lies the mysterious world of the Kumite. Fighters from different nations are arriving one by one, each carrying their own fighting style, reputation, and pride. Some are calm and respectful, while others are aggressive and intimidating. Frank realizes that he is entering a competition unlike anything he has ever experienced. During his first encounters with the other competitors, Frank quickly attracts attention because of his confidence and physical abilities. Among the fighters is a powerful American competitor named Ray Jackson. Unlike many others, Jackson is loud, fearless, and full of personality. The two men quickly become friends despite their different personalities. Jackson respects Frank's discipline and skills, while Frank appreciates Jackson's honesty and fighting spirit. Their friendship becomes one of the emotional anchors of the story and gives the audience someone to support alongside Frank. As registration for the tournament begins, the audience gets its first glimpse of the legendary Kumite Arena. Hidden away from the public, the location feels mysterious and almost mythical. Fighters, trainers, and organizers move around with complete secrecy. The rules are simple but brutal. Fight until victory is achieved. There are no easy matches and no guarantees of safety. Every competitor understands that injuries are common and defeat can come quickly against a stronger opponent. Among all the fighters, one name spreads fear throughout the tournament halls: Chong Li. He is the reigning champion and is known for his incredible strength and ruthless fighting style. Stories about his victories circulate among competitors, and many fighters appear nervous at the mere mention of his name. Unlike Frank, who fights with honor and respect, Chong Li enjoys humiliating and destroying his opponents. His reputation turns him into the biggest obstacle standing between Frank and victory. Frank eventually sees Chong Li for the first time and immediately understands why everyone fears him. The champion carries himself with complete confidence, almost as if he already knows the tournament belongs to him. The brief encounter creates tension without a single punch being thrown. Frank remains calm, but deep inside he knows that defeating Chong Li will require more than physical strength. It will require discipline, focus, and everything his master taught him throughout his life. As night falls over Hong Kong, Frank reflects on the journey that brought him here. He remembers the difficult training sessions with Master Tanaka and the sacrifices made to reach this point. Tomorrow the fights will begin and there will be no turning back. Around him, fighters prepare in their own ways. some training intensely, while others try to calm their nerves. The excitement in the air is impossible to ignore because everyone knows that once the tournament starts, legends will be created and dreams will be destroyed. The first day of the Kumite is finally about to begin. Frank stands among the greatest fighters in the world, ready to prove himself on the biggest stage of his life. He has escaped military authorities, traveled across the world, and stepped into a hidden arena known only to a select few. Ahead of him waits danger, friendship, betrayal, and battles that will test every lesson he has ever learned. The gates of the Kumite open, and Frank Dux takes his first step toward becoming a legend. The opening matches of the Kumite begin with an explosion of energy as fighters from around the world step into the arena one after another. The crowd surrounding the fighting platform watches with excitement as different martial arts styles clash in brutal but fascinating battles. Some matches end in seconds, while others become exhausting tests of endurance and determination. Frank Dux studies every fight carefully, understanding that each opponent could become a future challenge. Unlike many competitors who rely only on strength, Frank pays attention to technique, timing, and weaknesses. Years of training under Master Tanaka taught him that victory often begins long before the fight itself. When Frank finally enters the arena for his first official match, the atmosphere changes immediately. Spectators are curious about the American fighter who arrived quietly but carries himself with unusual confidence. His opponent charges aggressively, hoping to overpower him quickly and make an example of the newcomer. Frank remains calm and waits for the perfect moment to react. Using speed, precision, and discipline, he counters every attack with remarkable efficiency. Within moments, the fight is over and the audience erupts with excitement. Frank has made his first statement to the tournament. He belongs among the world's elite fighters. As the tournament progresses, Frank continues to impress both spectators and competitors alike. Match after match, he defeats experienced fighters using different techniques and strategies depending on the challenge in front of him. Some opponents specialize in kicks, others rely on wrestling or powerful strikes, but Frank adapts quickly every time. His ability to remain calm under pressure separates him from many fighters who allow emotions to control their actions. Soon, whispers begin spreading throughout the arena that the American fighter may actually have a chance of challenging the reigning champion. Outside the arena, Frank spends time with his new friend Ray Jackson, whose larger-than-life personality provides moments of humor and relief from the tension of the tournament. Jackson enjoys the excitement of competition and dreams of facing the strongest fighters in the world. While Frank approaches every match with discipline and focus, Jackson fights with passion and raw aggression. Despite their differences, the two men develop a strong bond built on mutual respect. They encourage one another and share stories about their lives, creating a friendship that feels genuine in an environment dominated by violence and rivalry. Meanwhile, the military investigators assigned to capture Frank continue tracking his movements across Hong Kong. Their pursuit becomes increasingly frustrating as Frank repeatedly stays one step ahead of them. The investigators cannot understand why an intelligent and promising soldier would risk his entire future for an illegal fighting tournament. To them, the Kumite represents recklessness and irresponsibility. To Frank, however, it represents honor, tradition, and the opportunity to prove himself worthy of his master's teachings. The chase creates additional pressure because Frank knows that every passing day increases the chances of being discovered. As Frank's victories continue to pile up, reporters and spectators become interested in learning more about him. Among them is an ambitious journalist who senses that the mysterious tournament could become a major story if evidence of its existence can be uncovered. She approaches Frank with questions about the competition and the secret world surrounding it. Frank remains cautious because revealing too much could place everyone involved in danger. Even so, their conversations add another perspective to the story by showing how hidden and mysterious the Kumite truly is. While Frank gains popularity, Chong Li watches his progress carefully from a distance. The reigning champion has spent years dominating the tournament and destroying anyone who challenged him. His confidence borders on arrogance because very few fighters have ever survived long enough to threaten his position. Unlike Frank, Chong Li fights not only to win but also to intimidate and humiliate his opponents. Every victory feeds his reputation and strengthens the fear that surrounds his name. For the first time in years, however, he notices a competitor who refuses to be intimidated. The tension between Frank and Chong Li grows with every round of the competition. Their paths cross several times outside the arena, and each meeting feels like a silent battle before the real confrontation has even begun. Neither man speaks much, but their expressions reveal everything. Frank sees a dangerous opponent who possesses incredible power and experience. Chong Li sees a challenger whose confidence irritates him because it threatens the image of invincibility he has built over the years. As the tournament advances into later rounds, the level of competition becomes even more intense. Fighters who survive the early matches are stronger, faster, and more experienced than those who came before. Every mistake now carries serious consequences. Frank suffers injuries but refuses to slow down. Bruises, pain, and exhaustion become part of daily life, yet his determination only grows stronger. He remembers the harsh training sessions under Master Tanaka and realizes that every difficult lesson prepared him for moments exactly like these. One of the most impressive moments comes when Frank performs techniques that leave both the audience and officials stunned. His speed and accuracy seem almost impossible, and some spectators begin treating him like a future legend in the making. Records inside the tournament start falling as Frank achieves results few competitors have ever managed. The excitement surrounding his performances spreads quickly through the arena, and even fighters from other countries begin cheering for him despite knowing they may eventually face him in combat. By the end of the day, only a handful of competitors remain in the race for the championship. Frank stands among them, bruised but determined, knowing that the most dangerous challenges are still ahead. Across the arena, Chong Li watches silently with an expression that reveals both curiosity and hostility. The collision between the honorable challenger and the ruthless champion is becoming unavoidable. As darkness settles over Hong Kong once again, everyone involved in the tournament understands that the upcoming battles will decide not only who wins the Kumite, but also whose legacy will be remembered for years to come. As the Kumite moves deeper into its later stages, the atmosphere inside the arena becomes heavier with tension and anticipation. The number of remaining fighters grows smaller with every passing round, which means every competitor standing on the fighting platform has already proven themselves to be among the best in the world. Frank Dux can feel the pressure building around him, but instead of allowing it to distract him, he uses it as motivation. Every victory brings him one step closer to fulfilling the promise he made to Master Tanaka and proving that his years of sacrifice and training were worth it. Frank enters another difficult match against an experienced opponent known for his speed and aggressive attacks. From the very beginning, the fight becomes a test of concentration and discipline. The opponent attacks relentlessly, trying to overwhelm Frank before he can establish control of the fight. For several moments, it appears that Frank may finally have met someone capable of stopping his incredible run through the tournament. However, Frank remembers one of Master Tanaka's most important lessons: remain calm when others lose control. Using patience and perfect timing, he gradually turns the fight in his favor and secures another impressive victory. The crowd reacts with increasing excitement every time Frank steps into the arena. Spectators who had never heard his name before the tournament are now cheering loudly for the American fighter. His combination of speed, technique, and respect for his opponents makes him stand out from many of the other competitors. While some fighters celebrate victories with arrogance or intimidation, Frank shows humility and sportsmanship after every match. This attitude earns him admiration from fighters and spectators alike, strengthening his reputation as more than just a talented competitor. Meanwhile, Ray Jackson continues advancing through the tournament as well. Unlike Frank's calculated and disciplined approach, Jackson relies heavily on raw power and fearless aggression. His matches are often explosive and entertaining, drawing loud reactions from the audience. Jackson enjoys the spotlight and openly talks about his dream of facing Chong Li, believing that defeating the champion would make him a legend. Frank respects his friend's courage but quietly worries that Jackson may be underestimating the danger posed by the reigning champion. The military investigators tracking Frank remain close behind, growing increasingly frustrated by their inability to catch him. They attend tournament locations and question people connected to the event, but Frank somehow continues slipping through their fingers. Although they were originally focused only on bringing him back to America, they slowly begin to understand how important the Kumite truly is to him. Watching Frank risk everything for this competition forces them to reconsider whether he is simply being reckless or pursuing something deeply meaningful. Eventually, the moment that many feared finally arrives. Ray Jackson receives the opportunity he has been waiting for and steps into the arena to face Chong Li. The crowd immediately senses the importance of the match because it pits one of the tournament's most charismatic fighters against its most feared champion. Jackson enters with confidence and aggression, refusing to show even a hint of fear. Chong Li, however, remains cold and expressionless, staring at his opponent with the calm certainty of a man who believes victory is already guaranteed. The fight begins with incredible intensity as Jackson launches a series of powerful attacks that surprise both the crowd and Chong Li himself. For a brief moment, it seems possible that the American fighter might actually achieve the impossible and defeat the reigning champion. The audience erupts with excitement as Jackson lands several impressive strikes, forcing Chong Li onto the defensive. Frank watches closely from the sidelines, proud of his friend's performance, but still aware that the champion is far from defeated. As the fight continues, Chong Li begins revealing why he has dominated the Kumite for so many years. His strength, speed, and experience gradually shift the momentum in his favor. Every strike he delivers carries frightening power, and his willingness to ignore sportsmanship makes him even more dangerous. Jackson continues fighting bravely despite the punishment he receives, refusing to surrender even as exhaustion and injuries begin slowing him down. His determination earns the respect of everyone watching. But determination alone is not enough against an opponent like Chong Li. The battle reaches a devastating conclusion when Chong Li abandons any sense of honor and attacks with brutal aggression. Even after victory is within his grasp, he continues punishing Jackson far beyond what is necessary to win the match. The arena falls silent as spectators watch the horrifying display unfold before them. Frank rushes toward his injured friend as officials finally intervene to stop the fight. Jackson is left badly hurt, and the brutality of the attack shocks everyone present, including fighters who had previously admired Chong Li's abilities. Standing beside his injured friend, Frank feels anger unlike anything he has experienced throughout the tournament. Until this moment, his goal had simply been to honor Master Tanaka and prove himself as a martial artist. Now his motivation becomes deeply personal. Chong Li has crossed a line that Frank cannot ignore. The upcoming confrontation is no longer just about winning the Kumite. It is about defending the values of honor and respect that his master taught him throughout his life. As the night comes to an end, Frank sits beside Jackson and promises that he will face Chong Li and make him answer for what he has done. Across the city, Chong Li celebrates another victory, completely confident that no one can challenge his dominance. Yet, for the first time in years, the champion may have created an opponent driven by something more powerful than ambition. With only a few rounds remaining in the tournament, the stage is finally set for a battle that will determine the future of the Kumite and the legacy of everyone involved. The next morning arrives with an atmosphere completely different from the excitement of the earlier tournament rounds. News of what happened to Ray Jackson has spread quickly among the remaining competitors, leaving many fighters shocked by Chong Li's brutality. Some participants who once admired the champion's strength now view him with fear and disgust. Frank Dux walks into the arena carrying not only the expectations of the crowd but also the weight of his friend's injuries. The cheerful energy that surrounded the competition in previous days has been replaced by tension, because everyone understands that the tournament is approaching its most dangerous stage. Before the fights begin, Frank visits Jackson, who is still recovering from the devastating beating he received. Despite his injuries, Jackson remains in good spirits and encourages Frank to continue fighting. He refuses to let his suffering become a distraction and instead urges his friend to stay focused on the goal that brought him to Hong Kong in the first place. Frank promises that he will continue, but deep inside he knows that his reasons for fighting have changed. This is no longer simply about proving himself worthy of Master Tanaka's teachings. It has become a mission to defend the honor and values that the Kumite was originally meant to represent. The final day of the Kumite arrives with an energy unlike anything seen during the earlier rounds of the tournament. Fighters, trainers, and spectators gather around the arena with the understanding that they are about to witness a battle that will be remembered for years. The secret competition has produced incredible moments of skill and determination, but everything now leads to one final confrontation. On one side stands Frank Dux, the disciplined challenger who earned respect through hard work and honor. On the other side stands Chong Li, the undefeated champion whose power and brutality have made him the most feared fighter in the tournament's history. As Frank walks toward the fighting platform, memories of Master Tanaka flood his mind. He remembers painful training sessions, impossible challenges, and lessons that seemed harsh at the time but now feel invaluable. Tanaka had always taught him that martial arts were about more than defeating an opponent. They were about discipline, respect, patience, and control. Frank understands that those lessons will be tested more than ever during the upcoming battle. Across the arena, Chong Li stretches calmly, showing no signs of nervousness or concern. His confidence comes from years of domination and countless victories against fighters who believed they could defeat him. Before the match begins, the atmosphere inside the arena becomes almost silent. Even the spectators who had spent days cheering loudly now watch in anticipation, unwilling to miss a single moment of what is about to happen. The two fighters stand opposite each other, representing completely different approaches to combat and life itself. Frank bows respectfully before the fight begins, following the traditions of martial arts. Chong Lai responds with arrogance, making it clear that respect means nothing to him if it stands in the way of victory. The opening moments of the fight immediately justify the enormous expectations surrounding it. Frank attacks with speed and precision, while Chong Li responds with overwhelming strength and aggression. Neither fighter is willing to give ground, and every exchange sends waves of excitement through the crowd. Frank manages to land several impressive strikes, surprising those who believed the champion could not be challenged. For the first time in the tournament, Chong Li is forced to fight seriously rather than relying on intimidation alone. As the battle continues, the differences between the two men become even more obvious. Frank remains calm and focused, carefully choosing his attacks and conserving his energy. Chong Li relies on brute force and attempts to overpower his opponent through relentless pressure. Several times it appears that either fighter could gain a decisive advantage, only for the momentum to shift again moments later. The championship match quickly becomes the most exciting fight the Kumite has ever seen. Frustrated by Frank's resistance, Chong begins abandoning the rules and traditions of the tournament. Instead of relying solely on skill, he searches for ways to gain an unfair advantage. The champion understands that Frank's discipline and determination make him more dangerous than any previous challenger. Fear slowly begins replacing arrogance as Chong Li realizes that defeat is a real possibility for the first time in years. This realization pushes him toward decisions that reveal the true nature of his character. During a critical moment in the fight, Chong Li secretly throws a powder-like substance toward Frank's face, temporarily affecting his vision and leaving him disoriented. The crowd reacts with shock and anger as they realize what has happened. Many spectators begin shouting in protest because the act violates everything the Kumite is supposed to represent. Frank struggles to see clearly and suddenly finds himself at a massive disadvantage against an opponent already known for his incredible power. Chong Li immediately takes advantage of the situation, launching a brutal series of attacks against the blinded challenger. The punishment Frank receives is severe. Blow after blow lands as he desperately attempts to defend himself without being able to see the attacks coming. Several times he falls to the ground, and many people in the crowd begin fearing that the fight is over. Chong Li circles confidently, believing victory is now only moments away. Across the arena, Frank hears the voices of his friends and remembers the teachings of Master Tanaka, searching for something that can help him continue. Through the pain and confusion, Frank recalls one particular lesson from his training years earlier. Master Tanaka had once forced him to fight while unable to rely on his eyesight, teaching him to trust his instincts and awareness instead of vision alone. The memory arrives at the perfect moment. Frank slows his breathing, clears his mind, and begins listening carefully to the sounds around him. Rather than chasing his opponent with panic and frustration, he allows his training to guide his movements. Slowly, the momentum of the fight begins changing once again. Frank starts blocking attacks that he cannot even see, responding to movement through instinct and experience rather than sight. The crowd watches in amazement as the challenger refuses to surrender despite overwhelming odds. Chong Li becomes increasingly frustrated as his advantage disappears. For the first time in the entire tournament, fear appears in the champion's expression as he realizes that even cheating may not be enough to stop the man standing before him. As the battle reaches its final moments, both fighters are exhausted and injured beyond anything they experienced earlier in the tournament. Every strike carries the weight of years of sacrifice and preparation. Frank knows that one final effort may decide everything, while Chong Li understands that his reign as champion hangs by a thread. The arena falls silent once more as the two warriors prepare for the decisive exchange that will determine the fate of the Kumite and the legacy of both fighters. When Frank enters the arena for his next match, the crowd greets him with louder cheers than ever before. Spectators who had once viewed him as an outsider now see him as the fighter most capable of standing against Chong Li. His opponent for the round is highly skilled and determined, fully aware that defeating Frank would instantly make him one of the tournament favorites. The fight begins with incredible speed as both men exchange strikes and counters in rapid succession. Unlike earlier matches, there is no room for mistakes. because every remaining competitor possesses elite level ability. Frank quickly realizes that the later rounds demand more than physical strength and technical skill. Fatigue has begun affecting everyone still standing in the tournament. Bruises cover his body, his muscles ache, and every movement reminds him of the punishment he has already endured. Yet, Master Tanaka's lessons continue guiding him forward. He remembers long training sessions that pushed him beyond his limits and taught him that true strength often reveals itself only after the body wants to give up. Drawing upon that discipline, Frank slowly gains control of the fight and secures another hard-earned victory. Meanwhile, Chongli continues his march toward the final round with terrifying efficiency. His matches are short, violent, and one-sided. Opponents who enter the arena hoping to challenge him quickly discover the difference between skill and domination. Chongli seems almost insulted by the idea that anyone could threaten his reign as champion. Each victory increases his confidence while also increasing the pressure on Frank, who knows that their confrontation is becoming unavoidable with every passing hour. Outside the arena, the military investigators finally manage to locate Frank and confront him directly. After days of chasing him across Hong Kong, they demand that he return immediately and abandon the tournament before things become even more dangerous. Frank listens respectfully but refuses to leave. He explains that participating in the Kumite is something he must finish, regardless of the consequences waiting for him afterward. For the investigators, this determination is difficult to understand, but they can see from his expression that his decision has already been made. Surprisingly, the confrontation does not end with an arrest. Having witnessed Frank's commitment and the significance of the tournament, the investigators reluctantly allow him to continue for the time being. Although they still disagree with his choices, they begin to respect the conviction driving him forward. Their relationship shifts from pursuers and fugitive to something closer to reluctant allies. For Frank, this moment removes one of the distractions that had followed him since arriving in Hong Kong and allows him to focus entirely on the battles ahead. As the semi-finals approach, the entire arena buzzes with anticipation. The organizers, spectators, and fighters all recognize that they are witnessing the final stages of an unforgettable tournament. Frank studies his upcoming opponent carefully, understanding that a single mistake could end everything he has worked for. The fight proves to be one of his toughest yet, forcing him to rely on every lesson learned throughout his years of training. He combines speed with patience, power with precision, and eventually earns his place in the championship match. The victory sends waves of excitement through the arena because it confirms what many had hoped to see from the beginning. Frank Dux versus Chong Li in the Kumite final. The crowd reacts with a mixture of excitement and nervousness because the two men represent completely opposite philosophies of martial arts. Frank stands for discipline, respect, and honor. Chong Li represents intimidation, cruelty, and domination. Their battle will decide more than the identity of the champion. It will determine which set of values triumphs inside the sacred arena. Later that evening, Frank spends time alone reflecting on the journey that brought him to this moment. He remembers sneaking into Master Tanaka's dojo as a young man, the endless hours of training and the sacrifices required to reach this level. He realizes that every challenge in his life prepared him for the fight waiting ahead. Across the city, Chong Li trains with complete confidence, convinced that his victory is inevitable. Neither fighter can avoid what comes next, and both know that the next time they step into the arena, only one of them will leave as champion. As the sun rises over Hong Kong once again, the final day of the Kumite begins. Spectators fill the arena with anticipation, eager to witness the clash between the tournament's most respected challenger and its most feared champion. Frank Dux walks toward the fighting platform, carrying the hopes of his friends, the teachings of Master Tanaka, and the determination to restore honor to the competition. Standing across from him is Chong Li, undefeated and unafraid. The greatest battle of the tournament is finally about to begin. The tension inside the Kumite arena reaches its absolute peak as Frank Dux and Chong Li stand across from one another, exhausted but unwilling to surrender. Every fighter, official, and spectator watches in complete silence, knowing that they are witnessing a moment that will become part of tournament history. Both men carry the marks of a brutal battle. Their uniforms are damaged, their bodies are bruised, and every movement reflects the punishment they have endured. Yet despite the pain and exhaustion, neither fighter allows weakness to appear on his face. Frank continues relying on the lessons Master Tanaka taught him many years earlier. Although his vision remains blurred from Chong Li's cheating tactics, he refuses to panic. Instead, he focuses on his breathing and listens carefully to every movement inside the arena. The sounds of footsteps, shifting weight, and sudden attacks become his guide. What once seemed impossible slowly becomes manageable as Frank adapts to his disadvantage. The audience watches with amazement as he begins avoiding attacks that should have been impossible to predict. Chong Li, meanwhile, grows increasingly frustrated by the situation unfolding before him. He expected the illegal attack to end the fight quickly and secure another easy victory. Instead, Frank continues standing, continuing to fight, and continuing to challenge the champion's authority. For the first time in years, Chong Li experiences something unfamiliar: uncertainty. His confidence starts turning into anger, and that anger begins affecting his judgment inside the arena. The champion responds by becoming even more aggressive. He launches powerful combinations designed to overwhelm Frank before he can fully recover. Some attacks land successfully, forcing Frank backward and reminding everyone of Chong Li's incredible strength. But every time the champion believes he has regained control of the fight, Frank finds a way to survive and respond. The challenger refuses to give the champion the victory he believes he deserves. As the fight continues, the crowd slowly changes sides completely. Earlier in the tournament, many spectators admired Chong Li's dominance, but now almost everyone is supporting Frank. They see a fighter who represents determination, honor, and discipline standing against cruelty and arrogance. Every successful block and counterattack from Frank receives loud cheers from the audience. Their support creates an atmosphere unlike anything seen during the tournament, turning the final match into something bigger than a simple competition. At one crucial moment, Frank remembers another lesson from his years under Master Tanaka's guidance. His master had taught him that true warriors fight with both mind and body working together. Victory does not belong to the strongest fighter, but to the one who remains calm when chaos surrounds him. Frank realizes that he has been focusing too much on the limitations caused by his injuries, instead of trusting the skills that years of training placed inside him. With renewed confidence, Frank changes his strategy completely. Instead of reacting to Chong-Li's attacks, he begins controlling the pace of the fight himself. His movements become smoother and more decisive. The hesitation that appeared after losing his vision disappears, replaced by calm determination. Chong-Li notices the difference immediately and understands that the momentum is slipping away from him once again. For the first time in the tournament, the champion begins fighting defensively rather than aggressively. The next exchanges become some of the most intense moments of the entire Kumite. Strike after strike lands from both men as they push themselves beyond normal physical limits. The audience can hardly believe what they are witnessing. Fighters who were eliminated earlier in the competition stand alongside spectators, united in anticipation of the outcome. Every person inside the arena understands that they are watching two extraordinary athletes giving everything they have for victory. Finally, Frank manages to connect with several powerful techniques that force Chong-Li backward. The champion, who had spent years making opponents fear him, suddenly finds himself in unfamiliar territory. His attacks lose some of their confidence, and frustration becomes visible on his face. Frank senses the shift immediately and continues pressing forward. The teachings of Master Tanaka, the support of his friends, and his own determination combine to push him closer to his goal than ever before. Outside the arena, even the military investigators who spent days chasing Frank find themselves supporting him. They entered Hong Kong believing they were pursuing a reckless soldier making a foolish decision. After witnessing his courage and commitment, however, they now understand why the tournament mattered so much to him. Watching him continue fighting despite impossible circumstances earns their respect in a way no explanation ever could. As the championship battle enters its final stage, both fighters know that only a few moments remain before everything is decided. Frank stands ready to deliver one final effort, while Chong-Li desperately searches for a way to maintain his reign as champion. Around them, the arena falls silent once more. Every eye focuses on the center of the fighting platform as the two warriors prepare for the final exchange that will determine not only the winner of the Kumite, but also which philosophy of martial arts will triumph in the end. The atmosphere inside the Kumite arena becomes almost unbearable as the final moments of the championship match approach. Spectators lean forward in their seats, unable to take their eyes off the two exhausted fighters standing in the center of the platform. Frank Dux and Chong-Li have pushed each other further than either expected, transforming what began as a tournament final into a battle of philosophies, discipline, and willpower. Every person inside the arena understands that they are witnessing a moment that will be remembered long after the tournament ends. Frank's breathing is heavy, and his body shows the effects of the punishment he has endured throughout the competition. His vision has improved slightly, but pain continues to affect every movement he makes. Despite this, his determination remains stronger than ever. He remembers the countless hours spent under Master Tanaka's guidance, the sacrifices required to reach this stage, and the promise he made to honor his teacher's legacy. Those memories become a source of strength, reminding him that true martial artists continue moving forward even when their bodies beg them to stop. Across the arena, Chong Li struggles with emotions he has rarely experienced during his years as champion. Fear, frustration, and uncertainty begin replacing the confidence that once defined him. He entered the fight believing victory was inevitable, especially after using unfair tactics to gain an advantage. Instead, he finds himself facing an opponent who refuses to break regardless of the obstacles placed in his path. Every time Frank survives another attack, Chong Li's confidence weakens a little more. Determined to end the fight quickly, Chong Li launches another aggressive assault. His attacks come with incredible speed and power, forcing Frank to rely entirely on instinct and experience. Several strikes come dangerously close to ending the match, but Frank manages to avoid disaster through discipline and timing. The crowd reacts to every exchange with gasps and cheers, fully aware that a single mistake from either fighter could decide the championship. As the battle continues, Frank notices subtle changes in Chong Li's movements. The champion's attacks are becoming less controlled and more emotional. Anger has begun replacing strategy, causing him to make mistakes that he would never have made earlier in the fight. Master Tanaka had often warned that emotions can become a fighter's greatest weakness if allowed to take control. Frank recognizes that moment now and understands that patience may finally give him the opportunity he has been waiting for. Rather than rushing forward recklessly, Frank allows Chong Li's frustration to work against him. He remains calm, conserving energy and waiting for the perfect opening. The champion continues attacking aggressively, believing that overwhelming force will eventually break his opponent's resistance. Instead, every missed strike drains more energy and creates more opportunities for Frank to respond. Slowly but surely, the balance of the fight begins shifting in favor of the challenger. The decisive moment finally arrives when Chong Li commits fully to a powerful attack, leaving himself exposed for the first time in the match. Frank reacts instantly, using the speed and precision that carried him through the entire tournament. His counterattack lands cleanly and forces the champion backward. The crowd erupts with excitement as they realize the impossible may actually happen. For the first time in years, Chong Li looks vulnerable inside the Kumite arena. Sensing that victory is within reach, Frank continues pressing forward with renewed confidence. He combines everything Master Tanaka taught him, balance, discipline, timing, and control, into a series of perfectly executed techniques. Chong Li fights back fiercely, refusing to surrender his title without resistance, but the momentum has changed completely. The champion who once dominated every opponent now struggles simply to keep pace with the man standing before him. The spectators rise to their feet as the final exchanges unfold. Every strike echoes through the arena while tension fills the air. Fighters eliminated earlier in the tournament watch with admiration, knowing they are witnessing one of the greatest matches in Kumite history. Even the tournament officials appear captivated by the drama unfolding before them. The outcome remains uncertain, but one truth has become clear. Frank Dux has already earned the respect of everyone present. With one final burst of determination, Frank delivers the combination that changes everything. The attack connects with perfect timing and sends Chong Li crashing to the ground. For a brief moment, complete silence fills the arena as everyone waits to see whether the champion can rise again. Seconds feel like minutes as the officials begin counting. Chong Li struggles to continue but eventually realizes that the fight is over. His reign as champion has finally come to an end. The arena explodes with celebration as Frank Dux is declared the new Kumite champion. Spectators cheer loudly while fighters gather to congratulate the man who achieved what many believed was impossible. Frank does not celebrate with arrogance or revenge. Instead, he shows respect toward his defeated opponent and honors the traditions of martial arts that guided him throughout his journey. In that moment, victory becomes about more than winning a tournament. It becomes proof that discipline, honor, and perseverance can overcome even the greatest obstacles. The moment Frank Dux is declared the winner of the Kumite, the entire arena erupts into celebration. Cheers echo throughout the secret tournament hall as spectators rise to their feet to honor the fighter who achieved what many believed was impossible. For years, Chong Li had ruled the competition through fear, intimidation, and overwhelming strength. Yet in the end, it was discipline, patience, and determination that proved stronger. Frank stands in the center of the arena, exhausted and injured, but proud of what he has accomplished. Despite everything that happened during the fight, Frank refuses to celebrate with arrogance or anger. Instead of humiliating his defeated opponent, he demonstrates the respect and honor that Master Tanaka spent years teaching him. This reaction surprises many people in the crowd because revenge would have been understandable after everything Chong Li had done during the tournament. Frank's decision to remain respectful reminds everyone that martial arts are meant to build character rather than destroy it. His victory feels different from the victories that came before because it represents the triumph of values rather than simply physical strength. Chongli slowly rises from the ground, struggling to accept the reality of defeat. For years he had built his identity around being unbeatable, and losing in front of the entire Kumite community is a devastating experience. The arrogance that once surrounded him begins to disappear, replaced by a mixture of frustration and disbelief. Although the champion says very little, his expression tells the story clearly. For the first time in a long time, he understands what it feels like to stand on the opposite side of victory. The tournament officials gather around the new champion and formally recognize Frank's achievement. Fighters from different countries approach to congratulate him, many of them expressing admiration for the courage and determination he displayed throughout the competition. Some competitors had faced Frank directly inside the arena, while others watched his journey from the sidelines, but all of them shared the same respect for what he accomplished. Winning the Kumite is an extraordinary achievement, but doing so while overcoming injury, pressure, and unfair tactics makes the victory even more remarkable. One of Frank's first thoughts after the celebration begins is of Ray Jackson. Throughout the tournament, Jackson had supported him as both a friend and fellow competitor, and Frank knows that the victory belongs to both of them in many ways. He visits his injured friend and shares the news that Chong Li has finally been defeated. Jackson reacts with excitement and pride, knowing that justice has been served and that the champion's reign of fear has finally ended. Their friendship, formed in the middle of competition and danger, remains one of the most important parts of the entire journey. The military investigators who spent days chasing Frank also witnessed the conclusion of the tournament. Their mission had been simple: bring the runaway soldier back to America before he could participate in the illegal competition. Yet after watching everything Frank endured and everything he achieved, their perspective changes completely. They realize that the Kumite was never simply about fighting for him. It represented honor, loyalty to his teacher, and the chance to prove himself according to values that mattered deeply to him. The respect they feel for him replaces the frustration that had driven them throughout the pursuit. As the celebrations continue, Frank takes a quiet moment to reflect on the path that led him here. He remembers sneaking into the Tanaka dojo as a young man, earning the trust of Master Tanaka, and enduring years of difficult training. Every painful lesson and every sacrifice suddenly feels worthwhile. Winning the Kumite was never guaranteed, and there were many moments when failure seemed inevitable. Yet by refusing to give up, Frank transformed himself from a determined student into a champion recognized by fighters from around the world. Meanwhile, the secret world of the Kumite begins returning to silence. Fighters prepared to leave Hong Kong and return to their own countries, carrying memories of the battles they fought and the lessons they learned. Some leave disappointed by defeat, while others leave inspired to improve themselves for the future. The tournament may remain hidden from the outside world, but for those who participated, its impact will last a lifetime. Stories of Frank Dux and his victory over Chong Li will soon become legendary among martial artists everywhere. Frank's triumph also sends an important message to everyone who witnessed the competition. Strength alone is not enough to guarantee success. Discipline, humility, and perseverance often matter even more when challenges become overwhelming. Throughout the tournament, Frank faced stronger opponents, unfair situations, and moments when defeat appeared unavoidable. Each time he relied on preparation and character rather than anger or desperation. Those qualities ultimately made the difference when everything was on the line. As the final hours in Hong Kong pass, Frank prepares to leave behind the arena that changed his life forever. He arrived as an unknown competitor searching for an opportunity to honor his master's legacy. He leaves as the champion of the Kumite and as a fighter respected across the martial arts world. The journey has transformed him in ways that extend far beyond trophies or titles. More importantly, it has proven that the lessons taught by Master Tanaka will continue living on through him for many years to come. The story may be nearing its conclusion, but Frank's journey is not completely over. Returning home will bring new challenges, new responsibilities, and questions about what comes next after achieving the dream that guided him for so long. For now, however, he allows himself a rare moment of satisfaction, knowing that he honored his teacher, defended his values, and earned his place among the legends of the Kumite. With the excitement of the championship slowly fading, Frank Dukes begins experiencing something he had not felt in days: peace. The relentless pressure of the Kumite, the constant threat of injury, and the pursuit by military authorities have finally come to an end. For the first time since arriving in Hong Kong, he is able to step back and fully understand the magnitude of what he has achieved. He did not simply win a tournament, he defeated the most feared champion in the competition's history and earned the respect of fighters from around the world. As Frank walks through the city streets of Hong Kong, memories from the tournament continue replaying in his mind. He remembers his first nervous moments upon arriving, the friendships formed during the competition, and the battles that tested him both physically and mentally. Every opponent taught him something new, whether about fighting techniques, determination, or the importance of remaining calm under pressure. The Kumite had challenged him in ways that years of training alone never could, forcing him to grow as both a fighter and a person. One of the strongest memories remains his friendship with Ray Jackson. What began as a simple meeting between two competitors quickly developed into a bond built on respect and loyalty. Jackson's humor and confidence brought balance to the intensity of the tournament, while his courage during the fight against Chong Li inspired everyone who witnessed it. Frank knows that without Jackson's friendship and support, the journey would have been far more difficult. Their experiences together create a connection that extends beyond competition and victory. Meanwhile, news of Chong Li's defeat spreads quietly through the hidden martial arts community connected to the Kumite. For years, many fighters believed the champion was unbeatable, almost larger than life. His fall serves as a reminder that no champion remains on top forever. Skill and strength are important, but arrogance and cruelty eventually create weaknesses that even the strongest fighters cannot hide forever. Although Chong Li lost the tournament, the experience may become an opportunity for him to reconsider the values that guided his career. Frank also reflects on the role that Master Tanaka played in every step of his journey. The victory in the Kumite belongs not only to him, but also to the man who dedicated years to shaping his character and abilities. Every technique he used, every decision he made under pressure, and every moment of discipline during difficult situations traced back to lessons learned in the dojo. Frank realizes that true teachers continue influencing their students long after training sessions end, and he feels grateful for the guidance that carried him through the toughest moments of the tournament. The military investigators finally meet Frank one last time before his departure. Their relationship has changed dramatically since the beginning of the story. They originally viewed him as a reckless soldier, ignoring his responsibilities and endangering his future. After witnessing his courage and determination firsthand, however, they see him differently. Although official consequences may still await him back home, they can no longer deny the respect they feel for what he accomplished. The conversation between them carries none of the hostility that defined their earlier encounters. As preparations begin for the journey home, Frank realizes that returning to ordinary life may be more difficult than participating in the Kumite itself. The tournament changed him in profound ways. He entered the competition searching for recognition and an opportunity to honor Master Tanaka's legacy. He leaves with a deeper understanding of himself, his abilities, and the responsibilities that come with success. Winning a championship may mark the end of one journey, but it often marks the beginning of another. The hidden arena that hosted the Kumite gradually empties as fighters and officials disappear back into their normal lives. Soon there will be little evidence that the legendary competition ever took place. Yet for those who participated, the memories will remain vivid forever. Stories of extraordinary fights, unexpected friendships, and unforgettable moments will continue circulating through martial arts circles for years to come. Among those stories, Frank Dukes' name will occupy a special place. What makes Frank's victory remarkable is not simply the fact that he won. Many fighters have won tournaments throughout history. What sets his achievement apart is the manner in which he achieved it. He remained loyal to his principles even when cheating might have offered easier solutions. He respected opponents even after experiencing betrayal and unfair treatment. Most importantly, he refused to surrender when circumstances became overwhelming. These qualities transformed him from a successful fighter into someone worthy of admiration. As his plane prepares to leave Hong Kong, Frank looks back one final time on the city where his life changed forever. Somewhere behind him lies the secret arena where he faced fear, pain, and impossible odds. Ahead of him lies an uncertain future filled with new challenges and opportunities. Whatever happens next, one fact can never be taken away from him. He entered the Kumite as an unknown challenger and left as a champion whose story will inspire fighters for generations. The legacy of the tournament extends beyond medals or titles. It lives in the lessons learned, the friendships created, and the understanding that true strength comes from character as much as physical ability. Frank Dux' journey proves that victory achieved with honor carries far more value than victory achieved through fear or cruelty. His story continues reminding audiences why Bloodsport became one of the most beloved martial arts films ever made, and why its message remains powerful decades after its release. As Frank Dux' journey reaches its conclusion, the meaning of everything he experienced during the Kumite becomes clearer than ever before. The tournament was never simply about discovering who was the strongest fighter in the world. It became a test of character, discipline, and the values that guide a person when victory and defeat hang in the balance. Frank entered the competition hoping to honor the legacy of Master Tanaka, but by the end of his journey he accomplished something even greater. He proved that true martial arts are built upon respect, honor, and self-control, rather than fear and intimidation. The victory over Chong Li represents far more than the defeat of a single opponent. Throughout the tournament, Chong Li symbolized arrogance, cruelty, and the belief that strength alone gives someone the right to dominate others. Frank represented the opposite philosophy. His success came from years of dedication, discipline, and loyalty to the lessons taught by his master. When the final fight ended, it felt as though two completely different visions of martial arts had collided, and the values of respect and honor had emerged victorious. For Frank personally, winning the Kumite brings a sense of fulfillment that cannot be measured by trophies or titles. He remembers the young student who struggled through exhausting training sessions and questioned whether he would ever become worthy of carrying on Master Tanaka's teachings. Every difficult lesson, every sacrifice, and every moment of self-doubt ultimately contributed to the person standing in the arena as champion. The journey taught him that greatness is rarely achieved through shortcuts or talent alone. It is built through persistence, patience, and the willingness to continue moving forward despite setbacks. The friendship between Frank and Ray Jackson remains one of the most memorable parts of the story. In a tournament defined by rivalry and competition, their bond showed that respect and loyalty can exist even in the most difficult circumstances. Jackson's courage inspired Frank during his darkest moments, while Frank's victory brought justice for the suffering his friend endured at the hands of Chong Li. Their friendship added heart to a story that might otherwise have been remembered only for its action scenes and dramatic fights. The military investigators who pursued Frank throughout Hong Kong also leave the story with a new understanding of him. At first, they believed they were dealing with an irresponsible soldier making dangerous decisions. By the end of the journey, they recognized a man willing to risk everything for principles he believed in deeply. Their changing attitude reflects one of the film's central ideas. People often misunderstand determination until they witness the sacrifices required to achieve extraordinary goals. As Frank prepares to return home, he carries more than memories of victory with him. He carries the responsibility of representing the values that brought him success in the first place. Winning the Kumite does not mark the end of his development as a martial artist. Instead, it creates new expectations and new opportunities to pass those lessons on to others. Just as Master Tanaka shaped his future, Frank may one day have the chance to guide someone else along a similar path. Meanwhile, the legend of the Kumite continues growing in secrecy. Hidden from the outside world, stories of incredible battles and unforgettable fighters pass quietly from one generation of martial artists to another. Among those stories, Frank Dukes' victory over Chong Li becomes one of the most celebrated tales in the tournament's history. Whether every detail is remembered perfectly matters less than the inspiration the story provides to those who hear it. One of the reasons Bloodsport continues to resonate with audiences decades after its release is that its themes remain timeless. People connect with stories about underdogs overcoming impossible odds, but they connect even more strongly with stories where character matters as much as strength. Frank wins not because he is invincible, but because he refuses to abandon the principles that defined him. That message continues inspiring viewers long after the final credits roll. The film also played a major role in introducing global audiences to tournament-style martial arts storytelling that would later influence countless movies, television shows, and video games. The combination of international fighters, unique fighting styles, memorable rivalries, and high-stakes competition created a formula that remains popular to this day. Bloodsport may have been released in 1988, but its influence can still be felt throughout the action genre decades later. As the story comes to an end, Frank looks toward the future with confidence and humility. He knows that new challenges will eventually appear and that no victory lasts forever. What matters most is not the title of champion, but the person he became while earning it. The lessons of Master Tanaka, the friendships formed during the tournament, and the battles fought inside the Kumite arena will remain part of him for the rest of his life. And with that, the story of Bloodsport reaches its unforgettable conclusion. From the hidden streets of Hong Kong to the legendary halls of the Kumite, Frank Dux's journey delivered action, emotion, and inspiration in equal measure. He arrived as a determined challenger searching for a chance to prove himself, and departed as a champion respected by allies and opponents alike. More importantly, he left behind a reminder that courage, honor, and perseverance can overcome even the greatest obstacles. That message is the true legacy of Bloodsport and the reason why this classic martial arts film continues to be celebrated by fans around the world.